This webinar will cover the experimental design portion of the BCBA Task List 5th edition. Welcome to your self-paced BCBA exam prep workshop. Please make sure to download the materials you need from your AATBS account to have with you as you complete your course. Hi, my name is Leah Verkeilen. I'm a BCBA and I will be your instructor for this course. Today's agenda will include reviewing practice question A, reviewing and participating in practice question B, completing your timed quiz, and reviewing your quiz questions. We will also review the tool. We have created a question breakdown tool to help you work through questions. Your worksheets will include these categories: content area, task list items, question stem and answer choices, understanding the question stem, keywords, concept ID and concept review, and the correct answer. So let's get into it with practice question A. A BCBA collects baseline data on the rate of pica. The rate of pica maintains high and stable rates of responding during all sessions in baseline. The BCBA applies the treatment package and the rate of pica decreases to near zero levels of responding. The next step is for the BCBA to demonstrate the effects of the independent variable on the dependent variable by implementing a reversal design. Applying a reversal design would mean A, returning to baseline, B, applying the treatment package to another behavior, C, changing the criteria for the target behavior, or D, applying one component of the treatment package at a time. So we're going to start with understanding the question stem, or breaking down this question to see what is it really asking us. So this question provides information about a clinical scenario and asks the reader to demonstrate their understanding of experimental design through clinical application. In this scenario, a behavior analyst is looking to demonstrate experimental control through the use of a reversal design of the independent variables. The question stem provides the changes in the dependent variables, or pica, across the baseline and treatment phases and asks the reader to determine the next step if the reversal design is utilized. All of the response choices are representative of experimental designs used to evaluate intervention effectiveness. The question asks the reader to apply their understanding of experimental evaluations that fit the description of following a reversal design given the information provided. The next breakdown is identifying keywords. Keywords are important words in the question stem that will help cue you into the correct answer. The keywords in this question stem will be baseline data, applies the treatment package, pica decreases, and reversal design. So let's break down these keywords a little bit more. Starting with baseline data. Baseline data lets the reader know that data has been initially collected on the pica behavior prior to any experimental evaluations being implemented. The reader is provided the rate across baseline of responding. Applies the treatment package tells us that the BCBA has changed conditions and applied the independent variable to the dependent variable. Pica decreases lets us know that there was a change in responding when the treatment package was applied. And reversal design. This tells us the type of experimental design the BCBA will apply next and is asking the reader to identify what the next condition will look like when the BCBA applies that reversal design. So our last step is reviewing the concepts presented in the answer choices. Let's talk about returning to baseline, applying the treatment package, changing the criteria, or applying one component of the treatment package at a time. Returning to baseline is the removal of the independent variables and returning to the same initial conditions that occurred in the baseline. This would mean discontinuing the implementation of the treatment package. Applying the treatment package to another behavior utilizes the same treatment package on a different target behavior. This would be considered a multiple baseline design. Changing the criteria for target behavior. A change in conditions by which a change in criterion in stepwise fashion is implemented. And applying one component of the treatment package at a time. This allows for the identification of the active variables in a treatment package. This would be a component analysis design. All right, so now that we've had the opportunity to break down this question stem, identify those keywords, and review some of the concepts that we have in the answer choices, What do we think is the correct answer for question A? Take a moment and see if you can identify that answer. Ready? The correct answer for question A is A, returning to baseline. Let's move into question B. A BCBA is observing and collecting data on changes in parent performance as she trains one parent to teach their child to mand. The BCBA has divided the training program into 4 separate training sections and has collected baseline data on parent performance across the 4 sections. The BCBA begins training on Section 1 and collecting data on performance and training on just Section 1, while continuing to collect baseline data on Sections 2 through 4. Once Section 1 training and mastery is complete, the BCBA begins training in Section 2, while collecting baseline on Sections 3 through 4. This model continues until all sections are trained and mastery is met and maintained. This is an example of which experimental design? A, multiple baseline across participants, B, multiple baseline across environments, C, multiple baseline across behaviors, or D, a multiple probe design. So let's get right into this question stem again. This is a longer question, but what is this question really asking us? So this question is providing us information about an experimental design utilized when teaching a parent to implement mand training with their child. The question asks the reader to demonstrate their understanding of experimental design through clinical application. In this scenario, a behavior analyst is utilizing a form of experimental design to show control over the dependent variable while multiple independent variables are presented. In this scenario, the behavior analyst is utilizing a form of experimental design to show control over the dependent variables when multiple independent variables are presented one at a time once the first is mastered. This question identifies how the behavior analyst is collecting data and graphing data. The question is asking the reader to determine what experimental design is being used. All of the responses are representative of different types of experimental design. The question asks the reader to apply their understanding of experimental evaluation and interventions to select the most appropriate design being utilized in the example given. Up next is going to be our identification of keywords. Remember, keywords are going to be specific words to cue in on that are going to help lead us to the correct answer. Sometimes keywords are concepts and principles of behavior analysis or specific behaviors mentioned in the question stem. Go ahead and take a minute and see if you can identify the keywords listed here. Ready? The keywords in this question stem are going to be parent performance, one parent, baseline data, and experimental design. So let's talk about these a little bit more. One parent is going to let us know that the data is being collected on the performance of only one individual. Parent performance orients the reader to what the dependent variable is. This provides information about a behavior that is being displayed on the graph. Baseline data on parent performance across 4 sections. This tells us how the data are being collected and displayed. Training on Section 1. This informs us that the BCBA is teaching only one section at a time and collecting data on accuracy of implementation. Continuing to collect baseline data across sections 2 to 4. This is going to tell us that data are still being collected on sections not yet trained and can orient the reader to the type of experimental design. And which experimental design? This lets the reader know that the answer choices will include examples of experimental designs, and the reader will need to determine which is being utilized in the example above. So lastly, let's review the concepts presented in the answer choices. When given a multiple choice question, it can often be helpful to analyze all the concepts presented to decipher between which is correct. So let's talk about multiple baselines across participants, environments, behaviors, and multiple probe design. A multiple baseline across participants is when the same treatment variable is applied to the same behavior across 2 or more participants. The graph would separate the data across the participants and apply the same independent variable at different times per participant. A multiple baseline across environments is when the treatment variable is applied to the same behavior of the same participant across 2 or more different settings, situations, or time periods. A multiple baseline across behaviors is when the treatment variable is applied to 2 or more different behaviors of the same participant in the same setting. And a multiple probe design is when a variation of the multiple baseline design is used that features intermittent measures or probes during the baseline. All right, so now that we've had another opportunity to break down this question stem, identify those keywords, and review some of the concepts in our answer set, what do we think is the correct answer for this question? This example is which experimental design? A multiple baseline across participants, across environments, across behaviors, or a multiple probe design? What do you guys think is the correct answer here? Let's find out if you got it. Our correct answer is going to be C, a multiple baseline across behaviors. All right, guys, it's time for you to take your practice quiz. Thanks for practicing with me. You may now proceed to your practice quiz, and once your practice quiz is complete, proceed to the review for the correct answers. Good luck!